Thank you. Thanks so much for coming out tonight. And I want to thank the Loft. It's been an incredible year. I can't believe it that tonight's the end. And I want to thank Sherry so much, and Vanessa started us off this year. All the Loft staff. It's been fantastic. My fellow mentees. It's been a really great community to be a part of. I filled 15 journals this year with all of the different classes, and I have written all sorts of things. I wasn't even sure what I was going to read tonight. I do have a travel book and something that's turned into fiction and some songwriting stuff, and we'll see what happens. But I'd really like to thank all of the mentors this year. I feel like I feel so lucky to be a part of this program, and to learn from writing limericks with Patricia this morning, and Matt Rasmussen and Diego and Rue Freeman and Danny Shapiro and Kalia. It's been fantastic. So thank you. What I would like to read tonight is this project I've been working on called Douchebag the Musical, a one-woman show, right? So bear with me. We'll see if I can sing parts of it, maybe. This chapter starts off. My memoir. I had gastric bypass surgery in 2007, and so the geography of scars tells that story. And the chapter that comes right before this, I was dating a man who told me that having gastric was like I was a microwave. I was microwaving a burrito, and I took the easy way out. So that's the one thing you might need to know. I had stopped attempting to date anyone after Wayne's microwave the burrito comment. I knew I was going through some pretty difficult changes, and I didn't feel settled. I needed that before I jumped into any kind of romantic relationship. But then I met Michelangelo. Michelangelo was dreamy, tall, dark hair, intelligent, articulate. He didn't belong in my life. Prior to meeting Michelangelo, I attended a friend's birthday party where a crowd of late 20, early 30-somethings dressed in disco, and we hired an old, rickety yellow school bus to drive us out to the suburbs, to an old roller skating rink we had rented for the afternoon. I wore a short black vintage dress, 6-inch platform heels. I used a friend's Christina Aguilera wig, painted my face in glitter, and sported a floor-length white fur coat. Our party bus dropped us off in uptown Minneapolis, a bar known for its douchebag skank appeal. I rarely frequented those places, even if I was a much smaller weight and the insults from drunk douches had magically disappeared since returning from my trip. But dressed in disco gear, I met Michelangelo at one of these douchebag bars. Ooh. What in the world is a woman like you doing in a place like this? Michelangelo asked me, or the blonde Marilyn Monroe version of me. I know, I laughed. It's a long story. I could feel him looking at me. My cheeks began to tingle. I wasn't used to flirting. So, can I have another cigarette and prolong this conversation, he asked. Of course, I said, and handed him a lighter. He was smart, sexy, an old soul with voracious vocabulary. He looked me in the eyes when he spoke, and I could not look away. Lady Annette, may I have your number so I can call you sometime? Yeah, of course. Michelangelo and I met at a jazz bar a couple days later. This is more our scene, he said, as he ordered us both a glass of white wine and smiled. We nuzzled closer to each other and listened to the da, diddly, ding, biggity, bong, bit, bat of the strings as they reverberated up on the stand-up bass. After the first set, we crossed the street, entering a campy piano bar. Before our beverages arrived at our table, Michelangelo jumped on the mic and announced, I've recently met a girl. Well, it's new, but I want her to be around for a long time. Before diving into his own version of Sinatra's, I've got you under my skin. As we left the bar, Michelangelo and I held hands, floating down Hennepin Avenue during the middle of a Minnesota blizzard. Something below my rib cage burned tightly amber flames. Night after night, we went out, ending back at my place, listening to Bowie or Fleetwood Mac or Radiohead or whatever was on the record player in my dining room. I'm sorry, this got stapled out of order here. We let the needle rub up against the record, and then we danced until the sun poked its head out of the horizon. My body had never felt so tender, never been wrapped before in someone's arms. We slept in late, discussed books over brunch, and met again after work each night to do it all over again. I dig you so hard, he told me. I know. I knew. We finished each other's sentences and validated those awkward early 30s late night phone calls, the ones that made me feel like I was 16 again. I don't know why I called. I know it's stupid, but I miss you. No, it's not stupid. I miss you too. Want to come over? Yeah, please do. And we danced. One night after picking him up from work, we took off to one of Minneapolis's great drinking holes. The Monte Carlo has always been full of old souls. Regulars who have been regulars since the 50s, slim martini glasses, sexy dark wood mahogany bar, a classy joint. The kind of place where people walk in and said things like, "This is a classy joint." Then they transformed into some character from a 40s mobster movie. We ordered what had become our regular fare, a plate of oysters and a couple glasses of white wine. We talked days and books, and then he turned to me and smiled. "You're just beautiful, Annette." I couldn't remember the last time I'd ever heard that. Don't take this the wrong way, but do you ever wish you could change something about your body? I didn't answer. "No, I mean, I have these ridiculously large cheeks," he said. He pulled his cheeks out for added effect. I hadn't noticed them before. "I've always hated my cheeks," he said, "and I have really puffy nipples." I hadn't noticed, Michelangelo, but if either of those things really bother you, maybe you should do something about them. I tried to change the subject: sports, arts, books, weather, whatever. "No, seriously, Annette, what about your body do you just hate? There has to be something." Hesitation. He continued carrying on a conversation with himself. "Come on, everybody's got something they want to change, something they were born with, something that, you could fix with a surgery." Fuck. My inner dialogue was shooting signals to Mars. Not the time or place, but is he really giving me an invitation to talk about this? I took a breath. "So yeah, about a year ago, I had gastric bypass surgery." Silence. "So I guess I already did, change the thing I wasn't happy about." I tried to fill in the silence between us. "Well," he took a sip of wine, "I suppose you did." Even though we went back to my house and pretended everything was fine, that we were all okay with the evening's story time, I could cut a knife through the air. The next morning, at one of my favorite French cafes in Minneapolis, Michelangelo started in on a rant I was pretty sure I saw coming before we had crawled into my king-size bed the night before. "I never want to get married. I wouldn't get involved with me. I'm in a volatile state right now. I don't want to wind up hurting anyone. It's not you, it's me, blah, blah, blah." "Thanks for your honesty," I said, before I dropped him off at his place, barely finishing my Eggs Benedict. "It's good to know that up front." And I drove away knowing what not to talk about anymore. When having coffee with an ex-boyfriend, handjobs should never come up in conversation. Not the stroking techniques, not the ways in which you did or didn't, or how the new partner does or does not perform or compare. You should not talk about positions, or that one time, or when we did that thing, or remember when we planned to do this together. We dudes just need to jerk off and get it out of our systems. Sometimes we need a hand with that, Adam said while sipping on his mocha, sitting across a table at a coffee shop that we had our first date nearly 3 years before. His words were transported in a tone I was never familiar with in the years we spent together building a relationship, except when one of his 6 personalities crept into our conversations. I knew he was digging for a reaction. I did not comply. "Well, my therapist," he says, and I tried to listen, but all I could think about were the years that we fought and he stopped seeing a therapist to help him deal, or the stories he told me when he and I were dating regarding how his former therapist seduced him, or how he only dated strippers before meeting me. "At least she's good to look at." "I can only imagine," I mumbled, without looking him in the eye. Instead, I fumbled with the paper trim on my latte cup and I thought about patterns. I thought about my most recent love interest and the musicality I crave in romantic settings. Madness was playing when I went to Adam's to return all of his things after he broke up with me. The song continued to play in my head for at least 3 days afterwards. Even on a gloomy day in March, in a city that feels like home, like Seattle, like LA, Minneapolis, or London, littered with train tracks, scattered with places that bring me to my knees in prayer and penance, over a solo cup of coffee, staring at a busy intersection in a new neighborhood I now call home, I can still hear it. I can still remember the day I memorized the color of his eyes and just how difficult it was for me to walk away. I also recognize it's much calmer at this intersection than the ones that I've lived at or driven through before. "My tacos are far superior." An attractive 30-year-old man spewed drunkenly over the bar to Reese. A mid-30-year-old woman I had gotten to know over the years, waltzing down to my neighborhood pub on nights when I just need to hear some live music. "Leave the lady alone," I told the stranger. "Since when did my neighborhood bar let the backwards cap-wearing bro dudes in?" The stranger at the bar looked me up and down, twice. The second time, his eyes met mine, and he smiled. "And who do you think you are?" "I'm Annette. Stop being an ass." "I'm Brian. I'd like to take you out sometime." My previous boyfriend, Adam, told me he was deeply in love with me after I called him Admiral Asshole on a 4th date at the spaghetti factory downtown Minneapolis. He told me months later, "I just want to fuck the shit out of your brain." I had never been more turned on before. "So what's your story?" Brian asked me. "Well, I can tell you about it someday. I'm heading out the door." And we exchanged phone numbers. He picked me up on our first date, brought me to a great restaurant on the riverfront of Mississippi. We ate small plates of fine cheese, marinated veggies, and samples of wine. "So you map roads in the Twin Cities?" I asked. "Yeah, I'm a cartographer. Do you know anything about that?" "Yeah, actually I do. I did some research a few years ago for a project in which I had to study cartographic errors." "Dude, you know about cartographic errors?" "Yeah," I smiled, flirting behind my glass of wine. "I think I'm in love," he said. A tornado was brewing outside, and through the window I could see green clouds forming. "We should get going," one of us said. 3 failed attempts at crossing the road because of fallen leaves or trees. He ended up back at my place. "Man, you have a great vinyl collection," he said. "Thank you. Play DJ. Please help yourself." And he grabbed Nico Case out of the sleeve. "I love Nico!" He squealed in an outdoor 12-year-old softball league voice, dropping the needle down on the record. "This Tornado Loves You" wailed throughout my speakers, and we danced in my dining room, practicing holding each other. While we held each other, I hummed my favorite inner tune. "At home on first base, lips burning from kissing your face. I can't, no, I don't want to back down." It goes on longer, sorry, not. Thanks. "Some of us are just cyclones." My therapist told me years ago when I was attempting to leave a man I was completely wrapped up, hook, line, and sinker. He will continue to spin, and you need to decide whether or not you want to get caught up in his chaos. But all I could remember, sometimes, was not the chaos of the fighting, but the softness, like releasing a damn Easter Peeps candy treat deep inside my chest when he told me how he wanted to do wheelchair races with me in the nursing home, how he told me he wanted to hold me in the fragile places. "I will read you Whitman, Neruda. I will make you watch James Bond films." "Love is," Adam told me once in the moonlight, sitting on my front porch, ignoring the chessboard, "when you glow inside. And many people can make you glow like an inchworm, but," he paused, "I don't know. I guess I just want to spend all of my days with the one who makes me glow the most, and that's you." And in the warm August afternoon, years ago now, I thought about capturing fireflies in mason jars on sunny summer evenings, always disappointed to see that their light could never last as long as you had hoped, wanted, or needed. Always disappointed, feeling guilty when you realize that the firefly is dead. Its curved, decomposed body nests up next to the leaves of grass you left for the firefly to feed on while you watched its glow from a safe distance. Each time I captured, chased the magical things with wings, at some point I told myself, this time I will figure out how to feed and water you, to keep you forever. And each time I was disappointed as I watched them breathe their last breaths, as I watched the light dissipate. Thank you.